Good evening. It is Shannon Kringen, Goddess Kring in Seattle. It is September 8th, 2025. Today I art modeled with an instructor that I hadn't worked with in maybe 15 years, literally. So might have been like 2008 or 9 or 10 last time I worked with her. So it was really nice to see her again. And I remember that I was art modeling on September 11th, 2001 for her class. It was at Cornish College of the Arts here in Seattle 24 years ago. So I've been working with this certain instructor for over 20 years. Started art modeling in 1992, and there's times when I wish that I was a normal person. Like the older I get, the more I realize I feel like I'm pulled in all these I'm pulled in the direction of doing my art. I'm an only child and I never had kids, and I'm in my 50s now, and I am really proud of myself on one hand that I managed to make a full-time living being a freelance person in many different creative ways, mostly art modeling for artists and working with medical students as a standardized patient. There's times when I wish that I could have a spouse and like have a garden and like just live in a nice house with a garden and just have a quiet life, and yet I feel pulled in the direction that I'm pulled in, which is I keep applying to art shows, and I got invited to be in the Thursday, September 11th of this week, 2025, the Alki West Seattle Art Walk / near Alki Beach in Seattle from 5 to 8 p.m. And so I'm going to have my art car up Moonstone parked in front of the venue, hopefully, and get there early so I can get a good spot and have a table with my art on it, poetry books and visual art made by me. And I will greet the public, and I will think of it as practice in connecting with people who appreciate my art. And then I art modeled for the Gage Drawing Jam a few days ago, and I was art modeling at the Artists and Craftsman Art Supply store here in Seattle with another female model named Cirque, and that was a fun experience, and they did beautiful drawings of us. And I recently found out about the passing of Gary Fagan, uh, the founder of the Gage Academy of Fine Art here in Seattle. And it's condolences to everybody who knew Gary Fagan. And I met him way back in 1992, and I didn't know him very well, but I really admire his career and his work in creating the school, the Gage Academy of Fine Art, which used to be called the Seattle Academy of Real Estate, and then they changed their name to Seattle Academy of Fine Art, and now they're Gage Academy of Fine Art. And he is an example of somebody that is happily married and had 2 kids and had an amazing art career. And he was a teacher and an artist, and a father and a husband, and he did all of that. I'm just thinking about my own mortality and my own. Honestly, I always feel single even when I'm dating somebody. And I don't know if that's because I'm autistic, or that's because I have not met somebody I'm compatible with, or I'm afraid and I'm wounded to trust somebody. Um, and then I think, okay, when you're younger, I think a lot of people when they're younger want, a passionate relationship that's interesting and dynamic. And then when you get older, you actually prefer something that's actually stable. And growing up, the only child of parents who divorced when I was 4, I was craving stability. My whole life, I've been craving stability. And the thing I've noticed about my life is the most stable thing about my life is my work ethic. I have a strong work ethic and a strong desire to take good care of myself and a strong desire to be stable. And part of why I love art modeling is I sit on the model stand and I am very still and I'm very strong. And I like that I'm getting paid by the hour, I'm earning a living, and people are drawing and painting from the poses I do. And somehow that makes me feel safe and stable and secure. And then when I think about meditation and spirituality, I feel in touch with the stillness within and the spiritual heart and soul energy of that consciousness and the conscious stability and the synchronicity. And then I witness many, many different art schools are changing. People are coming and going, people that work at these different art schools and the way they do paperwork and payroll and all the procedures and the budget they have for hiring art models keeps changing, positive, negative, up and down. It's a roller coaster. And then I think, okay, it's overwhelming. Technology keeps changing every 5 seconds. Um, all the art schools that I'm working at keep changing, and yet I have my eggs in all these different baskets. I work at literally 10 or 15 different places or 14 places or whatever. When I do my income tax, I have a whole bunch of places that I work with medical and art students, and I am blessed because I have a fear of scarcity. I have surrounded myself with an abundance of opportunity because I have a fear of scarcity. And yet, that's the best and the worst of my life is that it's so complicated. The way I work is very complicated. I have different friendships and relationships that are complicated, and yet I'm kind of a loner. I kind of do most things by myself, and I honestly do better when I'm by myself. Like I work with lots and lots of people. I performed at Bumbershoot in the Art Not Terminal Gallery with Vanishing Seattle art show that I was in. 3 art pieces hung, and I did an hour of Goddess Kring music, and I'm really happy and proud and grateful. And yet part of me wishes that I could live in a house with a nice man and have a garden. Like I feel like the man of my dreams maybe is more introverted than me. I don't know, but I feel like extremely introverted people though are probably freaked out by me. See, I'm sort of like introverted and extroverted at the same time. Like I don't like to go to parties, and yet I like to perform on stage. I like to be in front of lots of people as an art model. I like to share my art in public at galleries and live performances. I've done a little bit of acting. I've done a lot of art modeling and a little bit of acting and a lot of performing actually. And I have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of photos that I've created that I share online. And for the last 25 years, I've been sharing online on all the different websites. I mean, I have a TikTok, I have a Facebook, I have a YouTube, I have this video is for my YouTube channel. Hello, thank you for subscribing. This is Shannon Kringen in Seattle, and thank you for being here. There's part of me that wishes that I could live a more quiet life and live in a house and have a garden. And so there is part of me that's like that. And then there is part of me that's more public. And then I recently watched an interview with Keith Richards, the guitarist from the Rolling Stones. And the reason why I reference famous people is like I'm name dropping, but I'm not doing that for name. I've never met Keith Richards. I'm not pretending like I know him, but I study people who are performers, who are actors and musicians, and who do something for the public. I study them ever since I was 3 or 4 or 5 years old, and I saw Shirley Temple on TV. I've been fascinated with famous people, and um, not in a shallow way, though, in a deep way, in my deep Scorpio way, that I'm trying to figure out how these people created their careers. And then I think, okay, I started my public access TV show and I did it for 15 years. And I knew that I had to get the attention of people when they were channel surfing. And I thought, maybe they'll let me be nude on TV. And sure enough, they did. And I danced around in body paint. And I didn't just do it for the gimmick of that, but I partly have to admit I did it because I knew I needed to stand out. And I also knew that I was comfortable being nude in front of people on camera without wearing any clothing because I'm kind of a naturist, nudist, and I also am an art model. And so it just felt like an extension of being a natural human being, a free range natural human being sharing their personal thoughts and feelings. So it was kind of a metaphor, and kind of a not wearing anything was like a metaphor for being a natural human being that could share mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, and physical aspects of self. And so I also love to model for myself and model for others and take a lot of self portraits and be very self aware. And yet, part of me wants to have a more private life that's quiet and have a garden and live in a house with a nice man and have like a spouse, have a life partner. I've never really tried to find a life partner. I've never really, I've had a hard time in relationships and I am dating somebody right now. And so I'm not meaning to, um, dismiss that person, but this person does not want to, be my spouse or have a traditional relationship. This person has other things they need to do in their life. They are um, raising a son, and this person and I love each other, and um, I don't see myself living with this person, which is totally fine. But if I want a traditional spouse type situation, I need to find a person that I could actually live with. And then I think, okay, well, the reality is the relationships that I have are based on me loving somebody and accepting them as they are, and they accept me as I am. And so you could have relationships based on common interests. And then I think about Temple Grandin and how she talks about how, especially, I mean, all humans do better when they find people that they share things in common with. Like people like to hike, then they hang out with other people and they hike. If somebody, you know what I mean? Like, so I like to do music and art. And so I've had relationships with people that are based on whether it's a friendship or a romantic relationship based on doing something with somebody there's a common interest. We're doing music together, or we're doing a painting together. We're hiking, we're traveling, we're taking photos, I'm modeling. The person is photographing me. And so like that's a way of relating to somebody. And then you think, okay, when people are spouses with each other, how much of it is based on they both want to live in a house and have a garden and live together and eat and sleep and cook together? Those are very domestic things, cooking, eating, sleeping. But then if somebody has a career, if they're a musician or an artist, how do they coexist? So I'm thinking, how do I fit into how do I fit into all of that? Like ever since I was my whole life, actually, my whole life, I've been kind of a loner and an only child, and I never had kids of my own, and I've never been married. I've never had kids. I don't have any brothers or sisters. So I've always been a bit of a solitary person. And you know what? Both my parents are like that too. Both my parents are, they've been married and divorced and a few times, each of them. And I'm not here to talk about their personal lives, but let's just say that each of my parents, my mom and my dad both, do things in their own way. And even when they're in a relationship with another person, they kind of really do their own thing. And so they're kind of, I wouldn't say they're loners, but I think I come from a family of people that are My mom and dad and I, all three of us, have our own creative way of doing things. Hmm, it's interesting. So, what was I going to say? So, I'm just trying to figure out like, part of me is so grateful and so blessed with all of the creative opportunities. I'm doing an art show this Thursday. Tomorrow I think I'm going to an open mic poetry reading. My friend Leah Mueller is reading. She's one of the featured readers for Poetry Bridge of West Seattle. So I think I'm going to that, and I might do the open mic and read 5 minutes worth of my poetry. And then I was invited to be a featured reader on March 11th, 2026. I'm going to do that at the C&P Coffee Shop in West Seattle in 2026. And I have an October 26th music thing that I'm doing at Kenyon Hall in West Seattle. And so I have these different events that I've been invited to do, and I'm applying to more art shows. I didn't get picked for the Ignite Seattle talk. I'm sad about that, but at least I tried, and I had a unique idea about being a neurodivergent person. Somebody invited me to be on their podcast. I'm hoping that I'm going to be interviewed by somebody that I know, a woman that I admire, and she admires me. And um, she's a very beautiful lady named Fiona, who I took photos of about 10 years ago. And I took beautiful headshot photos of her. Um, and I put them on my Flickr. I've done headshots for other people. Mostly I model for other people, but I've also taken photos of myself and photos of other people. So I'm a model and a photographer, and I write poetry and I make music and I do visual art. And there's just part of me that wishes that I had a spouse and that I could live in a house and have a garden. It's as simple as that. And yet part of me just is just driven to continue applying to free art shows that are free to apply to music, art, poetry. I'm going to read my poetry. I'm continuing to model for artists. I'm continuing to work with medical students as a standardized patient. So I just wanted to catch up with you. I'm just having these thoughts about I wish I could live in a house and have a garden and just I think the older I get, the more I value just basic companionship and basic things like being staying in touch with my circadian rhythms of natural light, the plants, the animals, the sunrise and the sunset, and the earth, air, fire, and water, all of the elements of earth, and really appreciating all the trees. And I recently got to feed raccoons for like 17 nights in a row. I got to feed raccoons every night, and I developed a friendship with these raccoons that are wild, but I was friendly with them in a very cautious way, and because they are wild animals, and I admire them. So that's how I just wanted to document the mood I'm in right now. And I'm planning a trip to San Diego. My friend and I are going to go and film a video for the song I wrote called Only Child. And we're going to go to the Old Globe Theater and La Jolla Cove and Cuyamaca, Balboa Park, Ocean Beach, Pacific Beach, Fashion Valley, Mission Valley, Via Arcilla, Mount Servan Drive, El Indio, Old Town San Diego, the gas lamp district. I think that's what it's called in San Diego. I grew up in San Diego. I was there. I was only there till I was 9 years old, but I was born there, born in San Diego, and then we lived in Anaheim, and then we went back to San Diego. So from age 3 to age 9, I lived in San Diego, even though I was born there, but then lived in Anaheim near Disneyland. And then when I was 9, my mom decided we would come up to Whidbey Island. So, and then after high school, I went to graphic design school. Then I became an art model and danced at the Lusty Lady, and then became a standardized patient, took a lot of acting classes, started writing more poetry and doing music. And now I'm continuing to explore different things. I have my Venus in Sagittarius, so maybe that means that I continuously learn and grow with each relationship as opposed to settling down with one person. I'm a very heterosexual person in my love life, kind of pretty traditional in that way. But of course, open-minded about how other people want to be in whatever way they want. But I personally am very much heterosexual kind of person, and very in touch with liking my solitude, and but then again wanting companionship and wanting some kind of stable, consistent relationship with somebody and who I'm compatible with. And I don't really know what that looks like, and maybe in my 60s I'll be doing that. I have no idea. Maybe my 60s or my 70s I'll be doing that. So I just wanted to do a video and share this, and happy that I have my eggs in many different art school baskets because things are fluctuating and changing so much at all the different art schools where I model, that I'm glad that I work at a bunch of different places, because when you're an art model, you don't work full time at one place because they need to have a bunch of different art models to keep it interesting for the students to draw. So what you do is you work a little bit here, a little bit there, and you go to like 14 different, literally like 14 different places, and you work 3 hours here and 3 hours there, and it's like sort of juggling. And there's 3 or 4 medical schools where I work and about 12 or 10 art schools where I work. So that's pretty complicated. And but I kind of like it that way. And my eggs are in many different baskets. And so if one door is shut, then another door opens. And it's always seemed to work. And I have a lot of synchronicity with my career in my life. So I'm really grateful for the Vanishing Seattle show that I was in and the art walk I'm going to be in. And I was in a thing at the Side Rail Gallery recently in Seattle where I taught a wearable art workshop. And yeah, I perform live music at several different venues. I don't know. I'm just building my skills and learning. And I took a stand-up comedy class and a voice class at the Freehold Theater in Seattle recently. And I'm just still grateful that I was able to do that. So I'm grateful that I couldn't get a free parking pass today for my art model gig because there wasn't enough advance notice. And so the way I live frugally in Seattle is that I walked for half an hour. I parked somewhere where it's free to park all day, and then I walked to the art gig 30 minutes, modeled for 3 hours, and then I walked another 30 minutes back to my car so that I could get free parking. I could also ride my bicycle, but today I just felt like doing a park and ride kind of deal. So that's how I am frugal, is I don't pay for parking unless I absolutely have to, and I would rather spend money on art supplies than parking. So, or, things I need, like getting the oil changed in my car. See, I'm very practical in that way. For an artist, I don't smoke, I don't drink, I don't do any drugs. I eat health food, and I walk a lot, and I ride my bike, and I like to sleep. I don't go to parties. I'm just very, like, the wildest thing about me is my artistic, career, like working at a bunch of different places as an art model and a medical model, and being in a bunch of different art shows. I was in a play a few months ago at the Seattle Center. I did some stand-up comedy in a class at Freehold. I am in a bunch of different art shows, so art, music, poetry. I was invited to open mic the other night, but I was too tired. But I'm going to hopefully go to open mic next week. So I'm just sharing. That's how I feel. So what is that? Oh, I've got something on my arm. Ooh, yeah, look at that. My tattoo means be yourself, no matter what they say. So that's a Sting song. One of my favorite drawings somebody did of me recently. Focus, camera, focus. Focus, focus, focus. There it is, focus. Okay. So, self portals, yeah. ShannonKringen.com is my website. And Rickenbacker, let's see. No, wait. Is this a Rickenbacker? I don't know. I forgot what kind of guitar this is. This is like for Tom Petty, who widens my jetty. I have a Tom Petty Barbie doll. That's kind of like my shaman service musician deity. So yeah, thanks for listening. This is Shannon Kringen, Goddess Kring, signing off for now. That's the monologue for 9/8/25.